Hi, I'm Chris.
And I'm Jimmy.
And in this video, we're going to give you some tips on how to create the perfect website brief, why it's important to have a website brief when you're speaking with an agency, how it can help get you the best quality website, and most importantly, how it can affect the overall price that you pay. So to start with, when putting together a brief, well, you need to be thorough about exactly what it is you want. You need to cover all of your requirements in as much detail as possible. And one thing we've noticed over the years of working with businesses is that naturally when you start to put a brief together, you start to unearth things you may not have considered. So what would you say the first thing you should put in a website brief is?
So the first thing I'd say is treat the viewer of the brief as like a complete beginner to your business, because they may have no idea who you are. So give a little bit of an explainer about what the business does and where you fit within your industry. And also a little bit of background on the industry as well can be pretty useful.
Okay. How should clients define their target audience and users? Is it important to know who the website is aimed at and what information is important to include in the brief to make sure that the site is designed with, I suppose, the needs and behaviours in mind?
I mean, it's usually important. I think one of my takeaways from doing this role is people are too transfixed on having like a really beautiful sort of visual website, when actually what you need to do is get to the purpose of the website. So a big part of this is who actually needs the website. If it's your customers, I'd be speaking with as many people across your own business as possible. So, your managing directors, your marketing directors, your salespeople. So who are your customers? Where do they come from? What geography are they from? And all sorts of bits like that. Now, it's not just your customers, it's also, your existing staff and potential staff as well. There's just 3 customer groups, but there could be any number depending on the scale of the website.
How important is it to talk about goals, what you actually want to achieve? These could be like definite goals. You could have KPIs and targets, or it could just be, well, we're looking to generally improve the current website.
Well, the first things first. Setting goals, what it does is it uncovers the purpose of the actual project. So it makes you realise, why are we doing this and what are we looking to get out of it? What it does as well is it holds you accountable, your marketing team or whoever it may be, then also the agency as well.
Okay. What would you say the typical reasons for businesses wanting a new website are? A, the current website may not be good enough. You might feel some of the competitor websites are better. What else is there?
There's any number of different, reasons why you're looking. But I suppose the main one is you want to keep your place in the market or further your place in the marketplace, wherever that may be. A lot of the time it is, in reference to your competitors. They may be going slightly ahead of you and you realise actually to keep those inquiries or your e-commerce, it might be sales coming in, you need to stay on top of it. So
would you recommend doing a bit of prior research, include a few sites you like the aesthetic of, include a few of your competitors, direct or indirect? Is that important? Yeah, absolutely. It's not just aesthetic, as I mentioned just before. I suppose most marketing managers will have a good grasp on their competition. So if I'm a marketing manager, this is something I'll be looking at kind of day in, day out, just to kind of see what they're doing. But yeah, having a really good targeted list of the people that you either want to emulate, or even if it's just take a couple of bits and pieces from each one, is really useful, and that's good information for the agency once they get to the design stage. Do most people you're speaking with generally send across a set of brand guidelines or not?
Some more established businesses will have something like that in place. It can make website projects really tricky if you don't have something like that, because that can almost be viewed as a project in itself. So sometimes what happens is when you're writing a brief like this, you realise, we need to start with the brand guidelines. So that can be part of it. The more information you can provide on the aesthetic, the better.
Okay, now this next topic is a problem for most agencies, but it can also be a problem for customers as well. It's scope creep. So we've worked with many businesses over the years, and we will get the brief and we'll give them a price, and then that's the project. If the scope of the project then starts to increase or get out of hand, that can affect the time frame of the project. It can affect the overall costs. So how important is it to make sure that, the brief contains all of the requirements? Sometimes the client may not know what they want in the future. Do you generally split things into phase 1, phase 2, and then nice to haves?
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to scope creep, I'd say, I mean, look, it's really basic, but spend as much time on the brief as physically possible, because honestly, spending 1 or 2 more weeks on a brief could save you months, if not longer, in the long run. One thing we are pushing more and more in projects is phased approaches, so you don't necessarily have to do kind of too much too fast. Another thing which I'd say is really important with scope creep is taking that time to actually speak with people across the business and understand what do they want out of the website. We'll come on to this in a second, but it's also talking about accountability. So who's going to be signing off what and when? So what you don't want to have, for example, is you as a marketing manager put this together, you do a brilliant design, you get it in development, then actually you take it to a managing director and they say, I was looking for something different. So the more detail you can put in the brief about this, the better.
Okay, so that leads perfectly into making sure that stakeholders are clear, the agency knows who the main stakeholders are on the client side and vice versa, and just having clear defined roles. From your experience, does this make a project run smoother?
Yeah, I mean, hugely so. I think any efficient agency, one thing they will address right at the start of the project is what is expected from you as the client and what do we suggest from our side as the agency. So, you might have one person for your side who's in charge of content, for example, written content, imagery, videography. You may have another one who's in charge of, the social media, the SEO impact and all things like that. Now, that's one thing, which is actually sourcing content. Another thing is also at points of sign off. So at what point do you need to have different stakeholders in the business involved? So particularly design, we find actually you can have too many cooks, but at the same time, everyone's voice needs to be heard, particularly senior people within the business.
You mentioned a keyword there, and that was content. It can often be a sticking point for projects. You've had a smooth design process, you've moved into developing the website. When is the best time to start discussing content and to have it all available?
Content, I mean, look, it's probably the trickiest part of a project. It's not just us, this is something I hear when speaking with any number of agencies. What is content? So it's not just imagery and videography, it's also all the written content. Now, a lot of the time when we speak with clients, they say, oh yeah, we probably need to rewrite this, we need to rewrite that. Honestly, one of my best pieces of advice is invest in a high quality copywriter. It's a really tricky skill. It's not as easy as it seems. So that's one thing. Address it as early as possible. So a lot of the time, what content you've got will influence, the design, for example. So we appreciate, in a lot of projects, you won't have this ready right at the start of the project. Sometimes designers can put in placeholders, but the more you can get earlier, the better. What you can also do is, look at options for imagery and videography. Is it worth getting someone external to come in and help you with that? Because again, it's not that easy to source, all of that content. And cross-reference with your competitors, what have they got? Have they got, maybe it's a great drone video, maybe it's amazing high quality headshots of the staff. Any of these things, it's worth picking up on.
You mentioned copywriters there. Now, we always recommend going with experienced copywriters, but it's impossible to ignore AI, ChatGPT. Can it help in a project? Does it have certain benefits?
It's got benefits. I mean, AI is certainly not going away, as we know, but I'd hasten to say don't use a ChatGPT across the website. There will be inconsistencies, will be inaccuracies. So where we say it's really useful to use is if you use it as a prompt. So say, for example, right, we're going to write 5 blogs in the next week. What topics should I look at? And it was really good for kind of inspiration. But when it comes to refined copy, there's nothing that can replace a really good human copywriter.
Okay. Now, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit here. Timescales, everybody wants a website ready in a week or yesterday, but yeah. How long would you say the average WordPress brochure website would take to build?
I mean, look, how long's a piece of string? It comes down to any number of things, which is how long's the design phase going to be, how complex is the design, then also obviously all the technical sides of this as well. Look, there's a finger in the air kind of marker. 4 months is like a pretty good kind of marker as a generic, bespoke WordPress build, but it can be influenced by any number of things. Again, one thing we're really hot on when we're speaking with potential inquiries is giving realistic time expectations. Don't rush into this. Honestly, having a website 1 month quicker may well mean you have to do this all again in 12, 24 months because the job the agency's done is not great. Take a bit of extra time, really understand that you're doing the right thing, is the output good enough, and get it right the first time.
Okay, and medium-sized Shopify or WooCommerce store?
Yeah, Shopify, I mean, that comes down to using, one of the off-the-shelf kind of themes. Again, you can probably get something up and running within sort of 4 months. If it's more custom, with a lot more complex integrations, you'd be talking 6 months plus quite comfortably.
And I suppose it depends on the amount of data, importing that data, refining all of the product information.
Yeah.
Okay. Should a client include a budget?
Simply put, yes. I appreciate why brands are hastening to do it. You may think, the agency may just try and maximize whatever number I put on there. But ultimately, what it will do, it will save you time, it will save the agency's time. Because look, even if the budget that you put on there doesn't quite fit what they typically charge, they may be able to work to a slightly reduced scope. So honestly, it will save you a lot of time in the long run.
So we've had a great, smooth project. The site's launched, everybody's happy, and we then move on to the support phase. What's important to consider here? Should a business set in stone, we want 1 or 2 hours a month, or we'll come to you for ad hoc updates? What about hosting?
Yeah, I mean, again, similar with content, this is something you should really be thinking about before you even start the project, when you are putting together your brief. So it comes back to your goals. Why are you looking to do this website? And for example, if it's e-commerce, it's more sales. Just by launching a new website, it might not necessarily achieve that. If it's a brochure website, you're looking to attract more business leads. Again, having a great looking website may not necessarily achieve that. So what I'd be thinking about is SEO, PPC, paid social, any number of these different kind of tactics that can really benefit you. Naturally, unless it's a Shopify, which is a hosted solution through Shopify, you will need a hosting platform. So will you need that from your agency? Have you got internal capacity? And what do you think you're likely to need on an ongoing basis for support? So is it ongoing technical support? Is it ongoing design work? And one of the things that we're really big on these days as well is looking at CRO. So not just launching a website now and expecting it to perform for 12, 24 months. It's constantly working on that and actually understanding, is it performing? What can we change? Rather than just every 12 months getting a new website. Evolve your website as it grows.
Okay, thanks Jamie.